So this video we're going to go over the Roland System 1. Now first off we're going to start in the Oscillator 1 section. We will be jumping around depending on the context here. So we're going to start off, this will change your waveform. Over here we have the octave change. Now if we want to do another octave change we can look down here, octave down or up, that will change the actual keyboard notes. So now we have an interesting color knob. Now what this is going to do is change the waveform. So what we can do is this down here is set to manual. So if you want you can change this to an LFO. And we're going to go over here and look at the LFO section. So this is the shape, and down here is the speed. So if we turn this to the LFO mode, and let's turn up the color, well, all we have to do is change the speed here, and we can actually hear it modulate. We can change the shape, as I mentioned. Next we have the P envelope, and that's over here. It's the pitch envelope. So all you need to know is this and this is attack and decay. So depending on how high or low you set this, it will fade in that modulation. And then when you let go, well, let's turn up the release on here so we can hear it. So this is how it fades out. Next, this is going to go to the filter envelope. So this is attack, decay, sustain, release. And as it shows a little line here for reference. So if I turn this up, you can hear it running through that envelope. And next is, this is this envelope here. And then the last one is running it through the sub oscillator, which is right here. And after that we have the cross mod, so if I actually turn this, it's going to modulate it to whatever settings oscillator 2 is at. And if we change the settings on the oscillator here, they're actually mirrored to this one. So you can kind of just see, this will change the waveform, this will change the octave. As you can hear when I turn the octave way down, when it's running through this, you can hear it affect it differently. So this also has coloring. And that will also affect this as it runs through the cross mod. Now here we have tune. This we can actually tune it down in pitch or up. Well, if we turn off cross mod, you can actually hear it. Let's go into the mixer section. Now here we have synth 1, 2, sub oscillator, and noise. So it's just the volume knobs here. Now we have Ringmod right here. So when I turn that on, I'm actually going to turn off oscillator 1. And I wanted to mention when we're adjusting the volumes, if you put it in the middle, it's going to be at quote max volume. When you turn it up beyond that, it will actually start to distort. It's kind of like an internal overdrive. If you really wanted to crank the oscillators, you can do that. As you can hear. And then there's sync, and what that does is it synchronizes the waveforms. So as you can see, we can come up with a lot of different sounds by mixing and experimenting with all of this here. And of course we have the mixer. Let's go through the sub-oscillator. So I'm going to turn that up. I'm going to turn it up beyond 50. So you can really get a nice overdrive on there. You might want to have headphones to hear that. And then if I press this, it's going to bring the oscillator up an octave. And then we have noise. And this button changes the type of noise. Now here is the pitch envelope. So what this means is I can go into the positive or the negative. It's going to run that through an envelope here, and then we have attack and decay. If the filter is low, it's going to be a very fast attack or decay. But if the filter is higher, it's going to take a longer amount of time for it to either attack or decay. So that's all you need to know. And then this is the amount of pitch. So if I go in the positive or the negative, now we're in the filter section. So we have the frequency cutoff and then the resonance. And this is going to actually say the amount of the envelope here. So if I turn it to the positive, it's going to run it through positively and negatively. And this is key tracking. So the higher, when you turn it up, it's going to affect the filter differently as when it's lower. Now if we press this button, it's going to enable or disable negative 12 decibels or negative 24 decibels. So in the amp section we have tone. What that does is it changes the EQ depending on where we turn the knob. And here we have the crusher. You can use it very subtly if you want to maintain a musical sound. This is the amp envelope, or the envelope that affects the volume of the instrument. So if I want to make a little plucky sound, I would bring up decay and release. If I want something more like an organ, I would turn all these down and put the sustain. If I want to make some pads, I just bring that up and bring these up a little bit. Now we'll look at the effects here. This is reverb. This is the delay, feedback. and this is the time of the delay. Now if we want to add Portamento, we just turn this up. And then we have Legato. And what that does, if we hold it down and we turn the oscillator on either of the oscillators, it will actually change to a different set of waveforms. Legato also will, if you have, let's say, an envelope triggering, and you have legato on, if you hold a note and you play another note, it's not going to re-trigger that envelope. So if I have it off, it's going to trigger every time, which you'll hear. Where I turn it on, here's the tempo. You can have it synced to something. So if you have tempo sync on, the LFO speed and the delay time will be synchronized to whatever tempo we're set at. LFO key trig, all that does when it is on, it's going to trigger the LFO over again. I just turn up the LFO here on the pitch. Let's crank it up. Now we can hear it's going to re-trigger every time I press the key. Now if I turn that off, it's not going to re-trigger it. Next we have mono, and it has two different modes. So you have polyphony, and then you have mono. And over here we have the presets. So we have manual, that means all the knobs that as they're set right now will be playing the way it does. Or we can switch through different presets. If you hold down System 1, what you're going to be able to do here is press a different bank. So you have all these banks, and then from there press a preset. Now here we have plug out. Now that will only work if you have bought a plug out and installed it. Over here we have the arpeggio. So if we turn that on, it has the different types that we can run through, and then the steps. So this is how fast it goes through, and this is kind of like the pattern that we want it to run through. So if I start playing, it's just going up. You can hear it cycling through the notes. If I turn it, it's going to go up and down. Now it's just going down. Now it's going 2 octaves going down, 2 octaves going up and down, and this is just up 2 octaves. So we have all those options, and then over here we have the time. Now down here we have what's called scatter. So what you can do is while that is running, you can turn the knob and it's going to change a bunch of parameters. This depends on where we turn this dial and where the light is, and we can actually play. And if you like, let's say you like one of these settings, you can actually turn it, and then you press key hold down here, and that locks it into place. If you want to change it again, you just turn it, press key hold again, and then it locks that in its mode. And let's say arpeggio is off, we can do is just use key hold if we ever want to just hold notes.